Discover the best-kept secrets from the leading entrepreneurs across the globe. Learn from the greatest minds in business with the MyCoda podcast. Here's your host, Sam Payne.
Hello and welcome to the show. Now, today's guest is Jessica Improta, and Jessica is a specialist in well, we can call it personal development for now, but it goes a lot deeper than that, guys, okay? Because Jessica talks about something which, I quote, living from a place of presence. Now, I wasn't 100% sure what this actually meant. I actually asked Jessica straight out the gate, what does it mean to be living in a place of presence? And it's all about knowing yourself, okay? Knowing oneself, as we'd say. And when you first hear this, you might think this is a bit woo-woo and a bit la-la, but so many successful entrepreneurs are just avid fans of personal development. They do this every single day. They work on themselves. They educate themselves. They get themselves in a good mindset. They get themselves set for the day by doing meditation, reading, affirmations, going through rituals of gratitude, just outlining what they're grateful for. And this really sets them up for a positive mindset for the day. And you will not believe the difference this can have on your day, okay? Especially in business. Starting your own business, guys. If you've started businesses before, or you're in the process of doing it, or you're thinking about it, you will have an idea, or you will know how hard it is just to get your business off the ground and get it moving. And being in a place where you are positive, you have a positive outlook the whole time on everything you're doing, has such a dramatic effect on your results. I personally have a morning routine. I won't go into it now because I want to get into this interview with Jessica, but I get up about 4:30, 5 o'clock every morning, depending. I've got a 1-year-old son, so you can understand that my sleep's very temperamental at the minute, but depending on how good my sleep's been, I'm up between about 4:30 and 5 o'clock, and I will generally spend an hour to an hour and 15 minutes every morning working on myself, okay? Going through a lot of the drills, I call them drills, but a lot of the skills that Jessica talks about in this interview. So, guys, this is crucial to your personal development. This is crucial to you growing as a person and in turn growing your businesses. So you can really get a lot from this one and learn a lot from Jessica as well, because the work she's doing with people is just incredible. So I'm going to leave this one here, guys. Here is the MyCoda podcast with Jessica Improta. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the MyCoda podcast. Sam Payne here, and it is a pleasure to be bringing on today's guest, Jessica Improta. Jessica is a psychotherapist, coach, and founder of OM Lab. Jessica, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Before we kick things off, for the guys out there that may not be familiar with you, could you just give us a bit of a background info on yourself, who you are, and what it is you do?
Sure. So I am by trade a licensed therapist, licensed psychotherapist. So I work in a couple different capacities with sexual assault victims and kids in foster care. But then most recently, several months ago, going on half a year now, I founded OM Lab, which is both it's a virtual playground for meditation and mindfulness, as well as coaching, really just helping people step into their vision now and connect to really what they want to be doing with their lives moving forward. So I've brought the background of the therapy into the coaching, and then I also am really committed to helping people live from a place of presence and embracing their life now, even as they work towards their goals.
Awesome. And for the guys listening in, when you say living from a place of presence, what do you actually mean by that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we live in this society that's really driven towards getting somewhere. It's like, especially your audience, entrepreneurs and people who are creating something, we often live in that place that's somewhere in the future. And that is a place often of anxiety. It's a place of self-doubt. It's a place of wondering how it's going to work out. And it's also a place of hinging our happiness on something that hasn't yet happened. And so my belief is that it's so important to have vision, but you also really need to be in the present moment with what life is offering you right now. And I just see so often that people are miserable and they're unhappy because they're trying to get somewhere that this future that doesn't exist in their life is just passing them by as they're trying to achieve. And so living from a place of presence is opening up to all of the lessons that are in today, all of the things that you have to be grateful for in today, and embracing the life that's now, so that you don't, let weeks and months and years pass without really being connected to all of the beauty and the things that are available now. And I know that sounds a little bit woo-woo, but for me, I have struggled in my life with varying degrees of anxiety and depression. And so much of it was stepping out of this moment. And I'm committed to people. I really want people to understand that all of the ups and downs of life, like, that's part of it. And you can embrace that and join with it and still work towards your goals.
No, I love that. And I can definitely relate to pretty much everything you said there, to be fair, in terms of worrying and stressing so much about the now, and I'm not getting any followers, and just over things that really, in the grand scheme of things, aren't that important, really. I mean, because they will come, and I suppose it just comes down to gratitude, right? Just being grateful for that you even have the ability to be in this situation, to be striving for something that's just incredibly awesome. That's the only way to put it, really. It's something that's new, it's exciting, and that should be something to be grateful for enough, right? Instead of overstressing over it.
Yeah, I mean, we most of us are in a place in our lives where we have the option almost to be miserable. We can choose because there's so many good things going on, but we're wired towards that negativity. Our brains are wired to think that there's danger, and to think that, we need to be stressed and that things aren't going to go our way. And so it has to become a conscious practice, especially if you're maybe wired a little bit more towards negativity, which, I know there are people out there that are very positive, and that's kind of how they came out of the womb, like ready to go. But not everybody's like that. And so, it becomes a conscious practice of seeing where maybe you're, pulling back and saying, okay, in the scheme of things, like you said, this isn't important. And also there's so many awesome things going on that if I put my attention on those, it's going to help me, maybe have a little bit more perspective. But it is a practice for most of us.
And it reminds me actually of Les Brown. I love listening to Les Brown and people like that as well. And he says that actually your end goal is kind of, most of the time it's irrelevant, because 9 times out of 10 you won't hit your initial end goal, but the lessons you learn on the way and the person you turn into or grow into trying to achieve that goal is far more important than actually getting there. So
yeah, I think that's so true. And, we get very myopic. We get in this tunnel vision about where we're going to go. And sometimes that has you miss the opportunities along the way, or the learning moments that are actually going to shift you and help shape you in a way that might be more valuable than you could even see when you took off on that journey. And so there's like if there's a flexibility to opening up and seeing what's around you, and to noticing the lessons that are coming. That's going to help your business. That's going to help your life. It's like it's flowing more like a river instead of being rigid and and breaking if things don't go your way.
And I was looking forward to asking this question actually, because I've done something that's worked for me personally, because I used to be surrounded by quite a lot of negative people, and it does have a huge impact on your own mood. Like, it literally drags you from a good place to a really bad mood if you're around these people long enough. And one thing I've done was just cut them off my life completely. I just let them go. I don't need you in my life anymore. And since I've done that, I mean, I've done a lot of work on myself personally, but by doing that as well, I find I very rarely have bad days. I mean, what are your views on this? I mean, cutting out external things around you as well as working on yourself.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think that's a skill to some extent, in terms of being able to be around negativity and not have it affect you. I have worked with so much trauma in my life, and there's something for therapists that it's called vicarious trauma. So when you're listening to things all the time, they start to get infused, and suddenly you wake up one day and you feel terrible and you're drained. And, and I think that kind of energy can happen outside of the therapy room too, with just friends or people in your life. And it as an aggregate will, as a sum, you'll notice that it starts to take a toll. And so I think in the beginning, even being able to recognize that this is happening is a skill in and of itself. A lot of people, they're so numb to the negativity that's in their life that they don't even notice it. And when a lot of people, as they start to take up a meditation practice and observe their own negative thought patterns, the people around them's negative thought patterns become a lot louder. And what they want to do initially is say, well, I don't want this in my life. It's like hard enough dealing with my own negative thoughts. So I'm gonna cut it off at the pass with the external stuff coming in and try and work on myself. But then I think what people find is that there's value that they can provide to those people that maybe have those patterns as well. I was actually at dinner recently with somebody who tends to be more on the negative side, and there was a point where it really bothered me. There was like the gossip and the putting people down and things like that for me, I really try consciously to not allow to be part of my life at this point. And I find now that I'm able to be around it more. I just don't feed it. I don't nurture it. And so I think it's a personal choice. I think in the beginning, learning to set those boundaries when it has to be much more cut and dried. And then over time, as you are able to manage your internal world better, then you maybe, you can support other people in helping them shift as well.
Do you know what? One thing that strangely worked for me was, I don't really watch TV. I prefer to read. I very rarely put the telly on. But I stopped watching the news and picking up newspapers.
Oh, yeah.
It literally, that was a game changer for me.
Yeah, well, we've got some politics going on over here in the U.S. right now.
I didn't notice.
Lucky you. And there's actually been, I think there's articles coming out now about how it's really impacting people's mental health. And one of the things that I tell people when I do workshops and seminars on self-care is turn off the social media, turn off the news. It doesn't even have to be forever, but man, talk about something creeping into your psyche. There's so much negativity and fear, and it's hard not to get dragged into it. Like it's a train wreck, but it really does impact how you feel because it activates all of that fear and that fight or flight stuff, and your stress response goes way up. I think you're onto something there because that's it's important. It's okay to live in a bubble. Yeah. And the first time I ever read of that was Tim Ferriss in the 4-Hour Workweek. He was talking about how, not only does it cut down on his stress level, but it cuts down on the time suck in his life because, you're not sitting there following trains of negativity through the news. You can just ask your friends like, hey, what's going on in the world right now? You ask a few trusted people, so that you know what's going on. And then you get on with the more important things in your life.
Absolutely. People think I'm quite ignorant because they'll try to talk about politics. I'm like, literally, mate, I don't know what you're talking about right now. I'm like, I've got my own stuff going on. But I was actually really excited to get you on today because unlike other guests, you are just starting out with Om Lab, and I realised I said OM Lab at the start. It's Om Lab, right? I pronounced it wrong, but
you spelled it right.
Yeah, but I did spell it right. I was literally saying it as I saw it, But what I want to know was, what changed for you? What made you decide you wanted to start Om Lab, like, say, 7-8 months ago now you started it, and how was that transition for you and launching your own company?
Yeah, so I had been one of those people who, for a long time, wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I have at certain points in time dabbled in certain things, but never really jumped in with 2 feet. And I would say that the reason behind that was just evolution-wise, I just wasn't ready. Over the last few years, I've done a lot of mindset work. A lot of it stemmed from the mindfulness and the meditation and really understanding what was blocking me, which was really just thought patterns that were not supportive, and also thinking that things are supposed to go smoothly and perfectly when you start a business, which is not how it looks. And so when I had the idea and when I really decided to make the leap was it can't, and I may have talked about this a little bit, but my mom died 3 years ago. And that was really a turning point for me in realizing that, we don't have forever. And there comes a point where this day passes and the next day passes and then a week passes and a month passes, and there's all of this waiting for the perfect time and the perfect circumstances and the perfect conditions to start taking action. And it actually is the opposite that I started to realize needed to happen. I needed to take action, and then as things arose, I could deal with them versus waiting for completely calm waters to take the steps forward. And so it was really just a mindset shift in realizing and acknowledging that there were going to be difficulties. I could get through them. I'm in charge of the ship, and then going from there.
It actually reminds me of that quote. Was it "Smooth seas never make skilled sailors"? Is that's the quote I think I'm trying to think of here?
Yeah, and it's so true. You have to be willing to fail. If you're not failing, then you're probably not putting yourself out there in bigger ways that are going to help you grow.
So OMLab's been running for 7 months now. Yeah. So was this your first attempt at setting up your own business, or did you have any attempts, like you say, between that period of time where your mother died 3 years ago to sort of 7 months ago? Did you have any other attempts in between that time period?
No, I did a lot of learning in that time. I was grieving. I had a full-time job that I was working at. So I gave myself permission to just learn as much as I could. And then that the time would, when I felt like I had the tools, and not perfect tools, but enough tools, and also that I had tested an idea that I felt like I could move forward with. And I wanted to have more training in terms of the mindfulness and the meditation. I wanted to have, a more clear practice. I needed some tools with the coaching. And so then there were some things that kind of pushed me out of the nest, I would say 6 or 7 months ago, that it just became clear that now was the time. And so, yeah, in that 3 years, there was, I would say, more learning. There was one time that I kind of dabbled in something that ultimately didn't feel like something I could do long term. And so I turned around on it. But yeah, I kind of threw ideas around, but when it became clear, it became clear.
Yeah. And I'd like to talk about the work you're doing with OMLab as well now. So firstly, I think the big question is for people who are completely new to this, like, what is meditation and how is this so beneficial for people, especially entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so there's lots of different schools of thought with meditation. To me, it's a settling of your mind using it's focusing in a particular way that brings you into the present moment. And there's lots of different types of meditation out there. There's mantra, and there's transcendental meditation, which is a type of mantra. There's mindfulness, which is coming into this moment, but then expanding your awareness, allowing what's present in this moment to just be there. And so most people, what they think of is a seated meditation where you're quieting down and you're breathing. A lot of times people think that it means you're going to just have no thoughts and you're going to be this absence of thought. And that's actually not what meditation is. Meditation is being able to be with what is, with compassion and with care, and being able to train your attention back into the present moment. So not having thoughts is not an option because you're human, unless maybe you're in a hospital somewhere flatlined, and then we've got other problems. But in terms of why it's important for entrepreneurs, I've found that it's been invaluable for me, because when you set off on this entrepreneurial journey, when you set off on anything that's out of your comfort zone, what's going to happen is that your brain wants to keep you where you're used to being. It wants to keep you in your usual ways of thinking. It wants to keep you safe because there's a threat the minute you're uncomfortable. And so what the meditation helps with is it helps you to be able to observe the way that you think that maybe stops you from moving forward. So your sticking points, Sam, may be different than mine. Like mine may be feeling not good enough, or like my voice doesn't matter, or I'm not powerful enough. And someone else's may be, that I'm imperfect, or my idea is not good enough, or some version of that. And so being able to sit quietly, you'll see how hard you are on yourself, and you'll see where those thought patterns arise. And being able to recognize them, then when you're out in the world and you're saying, I don't want to make this phone call because I'm afraid, or I don't want to make a shift here because I'm afraid what people will think, you can start to see that that's just another thought like any other thought you have. And you can choose to follow that thought, or you can choose to consciously make a different choice, even if it's uncomfortable. So it's really helpful in recognizing the way that you are when there's danger. And then beyond that too, just the stress reduction, just sitting and breathing. We don't pay much attention to our breath, and yet it's the thing that calms our nervous system. It's the thing that keeps our stress down. It's the thing that helps us pause when, emotions are running high. It's valuable for just the stress reduction alone.
Well, I mean, I read The Miracle Morning a few years ago now, and one of the things that Hal recommended was meditating in the morning. So I've done a bit more research into it, and I actually tried doing it, and I got into it for quite a while, where you think I've nailed this. I think I know what I'm doing with this now. And it's one of those surreal moments where, like, I can only explain it as just complete silence, where I could start to control the thoughts that come into my mind, and it literally was like the most peaceful time of my day. And I used to do it like 4:30 in the morning when no one else was up, my phone was off. It was amazing. I loved it. But then me and my wife had our first son, and that changed things because I didn't sleep. So I found that every time I tried meditating, I just fell asleep. Like every time I closed my eyes, I just nodded off. And I've found it so hard to get back into it. I mean, almost like writer's block, if that makes sense. Like I just couldn't get my head back in the game. So, I mean, is this a common occurrence? Have you found people having the same problems, and how you help them overcome this?
Yeah, and first of all, that need for sleep, that's definitely your body telling you something, and that's okay. Like, you are in a sleep-deprived time in your life, and it may be that sleep is more of a priority than trying to control your thoughts, and that's okay. And also just notice if you're hard on yourself about that. Some of this is being open to the ebbs and flows of a meditation practice as much as life. And so, what I would say to people is that that's normal, unless you're some enlightened, ascetic guy in a robe in Nepal somewhere. Like you're going to have those days, and you might even have those weeks and those months. Recently, I went and did one of those float studios where you do, you go in and you just float, and it's darkness and there's sensory deprivation, and you just breathe for an hour, basically. And I thought it would be a cakewalk for me, that I would just lay there and my mind would go blank and I would float off and be in a full, deep meditation. And it was probably the worst meditation that I've had in a long time. Like, my brain went nuts. And I had that moment too of thinking, man, like, I teach this stuff and I am just all over the place right now. But that's also part of it. It's being able to roll with those punches. And so what I tell people in any meditation is that this is also about just being with what is, with compassion and care. And there are times in your life where there's going to be stress, there's going to be grief, there's going to be sadness, there's going to be fear. And can you just be with it and know that this too is impermanent? It's not, it's going to pass. And, sometimes you sit down and it's like, okay, I cannot meditate today. And maybe you put your hand on your heart and you try to ground yourself more in your body. Or maybe you say, you know what, I'm going to go for a walk today and I'm just going to open to the sounds of the birds and the sunlight and see things that I haven't seen before, rather than trying to force myself into some version of what I think meditation should be. Okay. Because I think that's what we do in our lives too, right? We expect that it needs to look a certain way. And when it doesn't, it just causes us more grief and suffering because we're mad that it doesn't look that way. And that's really a piece of what meditation teaches us, is to be open to what is there for you and to allow it without being harsh and judgmental and angry about it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it got to the point where I'd wake up an hour and a half later, spark on my lounge floor. I was like, oh God, that didn't go too well.
Did you feel refreshed though? Did you feel like
Not
you got
really.
what you
No,
needed?
I felt awful. My back was hurting while I was sleeping on the floor. It weren't a good time. We won't go there.
So maybe you need just like a conscious nap. You need to make the decision during that time to sleep in an extra half hour.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how did you turn this into a business?
Well, I started with a pilot. So I started with just inviting people that I knew to participate in a course, but the course was structured so that it was daily. And my vision really being that people, at least for the meditation side of my business, could have some more accountability, because I do think that that's a major piece of what's lacking with what's out there right now, is that there's apps and there's things you can read about, but what do you do on the day when you decide you want to sit and then something else looks more appealing? So I just invited people to a course, and they gave me money for it. And
Nice.
I said, okay, this is maybe something that people are interested in. How do you get support? How do you have more community? How do you sit with other people so it's not such a lonely situation? And then from there, I expanded into to my vision is really that that life is about connection, and it's about presence, and it's also about getting through those conversations that keep you from your goals. And so I expanded into the coaching, and just have gone from there. So since then, I've tried different things, and as you know, this is newer, and that's the prerogative of being a business owner, is that you try things and you see what works and you pivot. And for me, having a course has been something that's been appealing to people. And then, just inviting people to participate in the live virtual meditation, which is a unique piece of my business. And then just expanding and letting people know through communications, through Facebook ads, through workshops, that I also offer coaching to help people break out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you about the live meditation stuff you're doing as well as the courses, because I think the live meditation stuff was such a good idea, and a lot of people will look at that and think, I would love to do that. But I noticed you use quite a few different pieces of software to actually run that live meditation course. I mean, technically, can you break down the process of how you actually onboard people and get them into that live meditation?
Well, it's actually probably simpler than it looks. Basically, out here anyway, I don't know if they have it where you are, but there's a software called Mind Body Online that most fitness studios use.
I use that for my gym, actually, funny enough.
Okay, yeah. So you go on the website and you sign up for a course or for a class, and then you're in the class and you show up. So the only difference here is that when you sign up through the class through my website, when you get the confirmation, it has a link. And you click on that link and you're immediately popped into a video conference at the time of the session. So it's really the same process that you would use if we were talking about live stuff. And then it's a link that pops you in, and there's not anything that you have to do. It automatically downloads. It's the video conferencing software, and you're in. So that was something I was concerned about in the beginning, because being tech savvy doesn't come natural to a lot of people. But that's one thing I haven't had one problem with. Nobody's ever said, hey, I can't get in. I don't know what to do, which has been a pleasant surprise.
And what software do you use for the calls as well, the live calls? For the live course? For the live calls on the...
the live calls. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I use Zoom, video conferencing.
Cool.
Yeah, and Zoom's great. It's a really great thing for anybody, regardless of, if you're in a corporation. It's a really nice piece of software.
No, I use Zoom quite a lot, actually. I think it's a great bit of software. So, and then let's talk about your courses as well. I mean, you've got the Sweeter Life in 28 Days. Can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, so it's my first course, and it's 28 days. You get an email every day, and it's designed to help you build your own meditation practice. Basically, we start very small with a small assignment and audio meditations that I include, and then over the course of 28 days, things get a little bit longer until we've worked up to 20-minute meditation. And in addition to that, there's also little bonus, I call them unchallenges, just to help you shift things up in your life, to get a little bit more conscious of how you're showing up in your life with yourself and with other people. And I wanted something that would help people integrate a practice into their life in a sort of non-invasive way. Because there's so much value that can come from even just investing 20 minutes a day of self-care. And I think a lot of people, when they think of meditation or they even think of self-care and stress reduction, they think it has to be these monumental overhauls to their life. And so I wanted something that was going to be very simple, that was going to be small shifts that could make a big difference. And also fun. It doesn't have to be heavy and intense. It's like, you sit down, this is you time, and then you go have your day.
Yeah. And how often do you run that course? I mean, is that an ongoing thing people can just onboard to any time?
That's a good question. That's something that I've been thinking about. I'm going to run it live again, probably by the time this is aired. And then I may run it live another time right in the new year, because I know that when people are starting up the new year, they're trying to create new habits, and that's what I want to help with. But beyond that, I may make it evergreen, or I may make it a mixture of both. You can join the live cohort together, or you can just do it on your own.
And one thing a lot of people struggle with, especially like the clients I'm working with their online companies, is their pricing strategies. They really don't know how to price their products or services. So do you mind just breaking down how you come up with your pricing strategy and how you run yours?
Yeah, well, some of this stuff is still an evolution, right? But I will say this. So when I was launching this course the first time, I had a total meltdown the week before, because I saw someone post something on Facebook about how they were doing a 30-day free meditation challenge. And I charge $100 for the it's $97 for the low price point, the 28 days. And I was like, this is being offered for free out there, and I'm asking people to pay me for this. What am I thinking? And so I got really down on myself for a moment, thinking about it. And then what I realized is that, you put something out there and you'll find out if people are willing to pay for it. And for me, it was also about, what is it that I'm providing that's different than these free challenges? There's a million free challenges out there. There's so much that you can get out there for free, from mind to body to love to business, whatever. And so I think that that's a common thing that people bump up against is, why am I charging? Am I charging something too much when there's so much out there for free? So that was something that came up for me right away. But, I think that for me, it was a little bit of looking to see what was out there and looking to see what was being offered for free and offering a different value proposition. And then also just recognizing that for myself, I put a lot of work into this. It was a lot of time and effort. And what am I going to feel like feels valid for me? So if I was charging $29 for the course, I think that would feel undervalued for me based upon the time and effort that I put in, especially running it live. That may be closer to what it is if it's just an evergreen type thing. But I've got years and years of training, and I've got, hours and hours and hours invested to this, and a really big investment in people's success. So that played into it too. As far as pricing for the long term, how I'm going to decide on pricing, I think a little bit is going out into the market and seeing, putting it out there and seeing if people are willing to pay, and you'll get feedback. Feedback comes.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people don't quite understand the value of someone's service, I think, especially in something that what you're offering, which isn't really easy to understand. Like, I can compare it to the fitness industry. I mean, I've been working in and I own my own gym, and I've been involved in the fitness industry for the past 10 years now. And people always want something for free. They don't see. They see 101 or a million personal trainers or coaches, but they don't see the good ones and what makes a good one. And they don't see the time that goes into that. So I suppose it does just come down to valuing your own time as a person as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, and coming from the therapist world, therapists notoriously have a hard time charging for their services. And there's a lot of talk out there about your money consciousness too, and how you relate to being paid. And for me, there comes a point where You have to say, I've invested in myself so that I can share this with other people, and I deserve to be paid for that. And then also just looking at the psychology of it too, people don't value things, like it or not, they don't value things the same way that are free.
No, absolutely not.
And many therapists are afraid of raising their prices, but yet when they do raise their prices, they find that they have more clients coming to them because the clients say, oh, this is something that I should value too.
Yeah.
And, for me, for writing this course, it was, writing 28 emails and doing all of the marketing for it and recording, about 20 audio meditations and recording all the videos, that kick off each week. It was a lot of effort and it was a lot of work and it was a lot of research. And that's not something for me that I was like willing to charge for free, willing to charge nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand that. And do you know, I read an article on your site, which I thought was really good. Not another fucking article about why you should meditate. I thought, should I bleep this out? I was like, no, whatever, we're going with it. I mean, and it's obvious from that article that you're in a very saturated market. So, and a lot of entrepreneurs find that they are entering saturated markets, and that does intimidate them, and sometimes actually stops them from going into it in the first place. So, how did you ensure that what you're doing was going to work, and that you actually stood out from the other people that were doing the same thing as you?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that there are no guarantees, really. I think that this comes back to what I said in the beginning, which is waiting for the knowledge that it will work out is going to leave you stuck. And so there's so much of it that's going to be about testing and putting it out there and getting into action, which is going to help bring the clarity. And I still don't know if it's going to work out. There's definitely there's ups and downs, and I'm in the process right now of shifting a couple things that work more for my temperament and what I'm up to. But you don't know that until you start taking those steps forward. And so in terms of whether markets are saturated or not, this is something like you look at how many people are out there. And the other day I was talking to someone and I said something about being on the other podcast, John Lee Dumas's podcast, and he's got millions of people listening to him a month, right? And I mentioned it to someone and they had no idea who he was.
Yeah.
And there's somebody who's starting up a business. So there's always people, there's a market out there for everything. There's so many people, and it becomes a matter of being able to just figure out who your message is, what your personal brand is, what's important to you, and then sharing it. I don't know that saturation is really a true thing in most markets because there's so many people, and also think about how many times somebody needs to hear the same message. I'm often amazed when I come in and I talk about stress and someone will say to me, I've heard this before, but it was so helpful to hear your take on it, to get your angle. And, I'm sure for you too, I hear business coaches all the time, and suddenly someone will resonate with me that has the same message as the other 20 people I heard, but something about them just hits me in a different way, and I want to work with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know, another key bit of advice I heard recently, I interviewed Yaro Starak, and I asked him, sort of what his last piece of advice would be for the listeners of the show. And he said that all you have to do is go out and help one person. And he means truly help one person, literally make a difference to their lives, which is a lot harder than it sounds. But he said if you're just concentrating on one person, it's achievable. And then you can do it for another person, and then another person. And then instead of concentrating a whole demographic of people, just hit one or two people and just let it grow, which literally comes back to what you're saying there. There's billions of people. You don't have to hit all of them.
Yeah. I think is it Seth Godin who talks about 1,000 true fans? And, right, when you have the first fan and then you have the second fan and then you have the third fan, well, now you're only 997 away.
Exactly.
But it takes time. And I was listening to you interview Rebecca Tracy, and, she does Uncaged Life, and she's had a fair degree of success at this point. But she talks about her first year and how things were a lot different in that first year than they seem now. And most of us think that we should be there now.
Yeah,
I've certainly
exactly.
fallen into that trap. And you take your eye off the ball instead of coming back to the present moment and saying, what's important today?
Yeah.
I can't predict what's going to happen in 6 months or a year, but what's important today, working backwards from that vision, what's the small step that I can take today that's going to make a difference in my business and potentially and hopefully make a difference in someone else's life too.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we always forget that there are a lot of sort of quote unquote overnight successes out there that put a lot of groundwork in before we even knew about them, which is easy for us to ignore when they're online, right? So put in the
Yep.
hard work and it will happen. It's just being persistent, isn't it? And being consistent with everything you're doing.
Yeah, and sometimes you just have to know yourself well enough to say, you know what, today's a tough day and I'm going to give myself a break and I'll resume tomorrow. And I think that understanding that this is a long game, it's not a short game. But if you're consistently providing value to people in whatever way that you can, over time that picture is going to become more clear. People are going to understand who you are, and life's an evolution anyway, so it's going to evolve, and someday you may turn around and you're the person who's 4 years or 6 years or 10 years into your business who's the overnight success.
Exactly.
And that's ultimately the goal.
I like to call them character building days. I got that one off Les Brown as well. I quite often say
Oh,
that.
I have so much character now.
Like the most characterful person ever.
Totally.
Okay, Jessica, well, we're running out of time now. So before we do leave you today, I'd love to know if you have any parting words of wisdom for the listeners of the show.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that people need to understand, and my biggest piece of advice, is take small steps forward. Just get into some action, and if you're not sure what the action is, seek support and get some help as to what that small step is that you can take. It's not going to be perfect. You can't know if it's perfect, but just get into some action. And you'll suddenly, like we've talked about, you'll find that you're in a different place than you started just by taking small actions every day.
That's why I love that question. Great advice. I love that. And finally, before we go today, Jessica, where is the best place for people to find you online, and how can they get in touch with you? Yeah,
so come to theomlab.com. It's THEOMLAB.com. I know you spelled it at the top of the hour. And just join me for live meditation. Pop on for the 28-day course when we run that, and just reach out to me via email if you have any questions. I love to connect with people and help them get more clear on where they're going so they can take those actionable steps forward.
Perfect. Jessica, that was a brilliant interview, to be fair. Thoroughly enjoyed that. So thank you for coming on today and giving us some of your time.
Yeah, so much fun. Thanks for having me.
Okay, guys, and there it is. Jessica, thank you again just for coming on today and just delivering. I mean, guys, this is a topic that I am very passionate about. I'm so about personal development. It's unbelievable, okay? So if you haven't practiced any of these methods before, guys, or if you have but you want to develop what you've already done, then this is for everybody. And I would definitely 100% recommend going and checking out Jessica's site. All of her contact details are in the show notes below, okay? So make sure you check those out. And check out her course as well. I mean, I've actually spoken to a few of the guys that have been on her course, and the results they've got are just incredible. And not just for themselves personally, but they've commented, all of them have said what a dramatic result they've seen in their business. They've seen increase in sales, increase in productivity. They're handling their staff better. They're also going out and they're being more positive every single day. Whenever they're faced with an obstacle, they're overcoming it so much quicker and more effectively as well. So, guys, this is for everyone. So please go and check that stuff out. Now, what goes hand in hand with this is the programs I'm currently running with the High Performance One program. Okay, this is the other business I've got with Craig Isaacs, and we're running seminars at the minute, guys, which are in the UK. If you are interested, though, we are going to be releasing video courses, audio courses off the back of all these seminars, okay? So you can get the exact content we're teaching and you can hear it time and time again, because that's literally what this takes. This is all about, it's not a quick fix, this is about learning methods which are going to put you in a positive mindset, okay? And it's going to help you overcome whatever challenges you face, but to continue doing so, guys, and going out of a positive mindset where you can literally take anything on, attack it, overcome it, and prosper. you need to hear it time and time again. These messages must be repeated time and time again, okay? So when you do consume this type of content, guys, make sure you're doing it for the long haul. Don't just try it for a couple of weeks and then give up, okay? Now, on the High Performance One program, we've got Greg, who talks about inspirational mindsetting and motivation, okay? And then once we get you in a place where you are ready to go, mentally you are there, and everything is firing on all cylinders, so you can literally overcome any challenge that you hit on the way up. Because, guys, anyone that's out there listening now who's got a successful business or has been through this before, you know that it does present a lot of challenges along the way, okay? And it's very easy to give up if you don't quite know why you're doing this. Then once you're ready to go, guys, then we give you the practical business application you need to literally go out and follow step-by-step guides which are going to help you take your business from zero to whether it's an online platform, okay, or a physical platform. So you may have a shop or something like that. But we've got programs which help you with both, guys, okay, because I'm done both, and I'm drawing on my experiences to help you set up businesses where I've set up successful businesses before. So, guys, this is for everyone, okay, and I recommend you check that out too, because even if you want to check out the free talk, guys, just to see what we're about, we've got the whole intro seminar. We run 2 hours of free content on the site, and that will also be in the link below. And that is it, guys. Thank you so much for listening in today. Once again, it is an absolute pleasure to be delivering this content to you. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time on the MyCoda podcast.